Nigeria, uplifting the people and uniting the nation.
It's 10 o'clock, and this is the network service of Radio Nigeria. Good morning, listener. We're back with another engaging edition of Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We're delighted to have you with us today. In the last edition, we had Hajia Amina Zakari, former National Commissioner, Independent National Electoral Commission, with us, discussing the anatomy of fair election and examining the key components that ensure transparent and credible electoral process. This week, we will shift our focus to advancing gender equity in Nigeria's electoral process. We'll explore the challenges women face in politics and the reforms needed to create a more inclusive electoral environment. My name is Ezenwa Waguyo, anchor. Electoral Reform Hour is a program aimed to foster inclusive dialogue among citizens from varied backgrounds concerning electoral reform and constitutional amendments. It also hopes to enhance public understanding and awareness regarding electoral reform and compile and present citizen-derived recommendations to the National Assembly and INEC for consideration. This program is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Advancing gender equity in Nigeria's electoral process is essential to achieving a more balanced and representative political system. Despite women constituting nearly half of the population, they are significantly underrepresented in political offices due to long-standing barriers such as cultural biases, limited financial resources, political violence, and unequal access to education. To address these issues, reforms are being proposed, including the introduction of gender quotas to ensure fair representation, financial support for women candidates, and stronger legal protection against political violence. Additionally, voter education campaigns and capacity building programs for aspiring female leaders are crucial steps in fostering a more inclusive political environment. These efforts aim to create a political landscape where women have equal opportunities to participate and influence decision-making processes in Nigeria. Our guests today are two leading advocates for advancing gender equity in Nigeria's political landscape. Cynthia Mbamalu is a seasoned human rights advocate and lawyer, serving as the Director of Programs in Yiaga Africa. With over 16 years of experience, she's been at the forefront of political inclusion, electoral reform, and gender rights advocacy. Cynthia co-founded the Not Too Young to Run and Run to Win Nigeria initiatives and leads at the Watching the Vote project. She also actively involved in legislative reforms to promote gender-sensitive laws and hosts the Unamplified podcast, which addresses democracy and social development issues. We'll also be having Ebere Ifendu, who is the president of Women in Politics Forum, WIPF, and a board member of Women's Democratic Network, WDN Africa, a lawyer, a chartered mediator, and gender advocate. She is an expert in political party management and strategy. Ebere has dedicated her career to promoting gender equity in politics, ensuring that women have a stronger voice in Nigeria's democratic process. While we still are waiting, they are coming. I'm sure they are held up somewhere. In a few minutes, they will be joining us. We will be opening up the lines. Last week, we had Hajia Amina Zakari, who, took us through the anatomy of fair elections. And many of you were working to get across to us. You were trying to get calls in, and you were not able to do so. We could take a few minutes to get your insight into that last week's conversation. I think you can begin to make your call. The numbers to call, if you remember, will be... hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Olayemi Daniel.
Okay, Olayemi Daniel. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Gustavo Zamfara State. The name is Nasir Usman Rawaya, ND Rawaya Cafe.
Okay, it's my pleasure. From Zamfara State.
Well, I just called to wish you a happy day and wish you all the best and wish Nigeria to be a greater high in terms of infrastructure, health sector, education, and so on and so forth. So that's my contribution. I still remain Nasiru.
Nasiru, I wanted to know if you listened to the program last week, Thursday, when we had Hajia Amina Zakari on the bill. Hello, Nasiru. Yeah, so I was, for those of you who listened to us, Hajia put us through part of the issues that had bedeviled the elections, which had to do with logistics. And do you have any ideas as to how we can engage the issue of the logistics challenges that we continue to face in our electoral process? If you can call in while our guests settle in for the conversation. Well, I'm happy to have Ebere Ifendu, the president of WIPF, Women in Politics Forum, joining us this morning. Ebere, as I said earlier, is a chartered, is the president of WIPF and a board member of the Women's Democratic Network, Africa. She's a lawyer, chartered mediator, and gender advocate. She's an expert in political party management and strategy. Ebere has dedicated her career in promoting gender equity in politics, ensuring that women have a stronger voice in Nigeria's democratic process. It's my pleasure to welcome you, Ebere.
Thank you very much.
This is Electoral Reform Hour on Radio Nigeria, and it's been a drag for us. I'm happy I'm able to ambush you out of your very busy schedule today. So how are you doing?
Very well, and working hard to see that we have a good democracy in Nigeria, one that is inclusive, where women, youth, and persons with disabilities will have a stake in governance.
You've been around. I remember you were a woman leader in the Labour Party at some point.
Exactly.
And then you've transited now to become a very strong voice for women, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa generally. Now, the cost of running office in Nigeria is high, especially for women. how can reforms in campaign financing laws address these gender disparities? Do you think public funding will be of any help?
Well, public funding, but the truth is that the way our elections are structured, especially campaigns and for candidates, actually starts from the primary time to get ticket, primaries, So the way it is structured, it is a very expensive venture. We know that all over the world, yes, election is not a cheap thing, but the extent, you hear ridiculous amounts, that parties sell their forms. That's actually a way of, excluding highly qualified people with character and integrity, but unfortunately may not have, funds. So if we structure it in a way that there will be a cap to say a political party cannot sell a particular form for more than this, and then it will be followed to ensure that that is done. Reduce campaigns to where, like they have abroad. When you travel, you will see someone just put a pole by the street just talking about his activities. But no, in Nigeria, we'll have to fuel cars, we'll have to, get a big space, we'll need to bring people in. People don't even volunteer to participate. So you see that the candidate will have to spend at every point to ensure that people attend to listen to him. Candidates should also learn to use the radio more, to talk to people. It's not until you show that, make that kind of show that people will know that you have the strength. So if the cost of campaigns, electioneering campaign is reduced to the barest minimum, I think women will participate more, persons with disabilities will participate more. We really have to see that when some of these laws, when they are there and people don't obey it, we need to see that people are made to pay for whatever they've not done right. Because once we start doing that, others will learn. So we actually have laws. Yes, it's been capped, but no one is following it. The local government elections from states, I don't want to mention states so that it was not looking like one is out to destroy, a particular party or so. You will go to states and where you hear ridiculous amount that they are charging for councillorship, you begin to wonder, that councillor, that person that can pay that huge amount of money to get forms to contest as a councillor, when he gets there, will he have the mind, to work? Because I think the first thing he will be looking at or thinking about will be, how do I recoup my money? And in recouping, you know what it means. You are not just going to recoup how much you spent. You're going to recoup with over 1 million, percent on top of the money. So yes, it's important to have the law, but most importantly is for its implementation.
I saw that you didn't want to talk about free forms.
No.
I know you've been very strong on that.
Yes. We can't canvass for free forms at this time.
For women.
For women, that is not right. I say this because I've always used the word Greek gift. When they give you a free form, they will ask you to step down. Of course, it's free. You can't challenge it. Part of what I experienced when I contested in my party then, Labour Party, after my tenure as the national women leader, I contested the national publicity secretary position, and they gave us, guidelines, and part of it was to pay. And so women came to me and said, woman leader, please, we are not going to pay. I said, me, I'm paying. If you don't want to pay, you can go and negotiate with the party, but I won't negotiate on your behalf. And I told them why they should pay, and we paid. When we got to Akure for the convention, we had issues. And I told them, I said, well, I'm going to contest the election because I paid for it. So if I lose, that's fine. But you can't ask me to step down. I was able to do that because I paid. If I was given a free form, I wouldn't have, been able to push that hard. I contested and I won. I became the National Publicity Secretary of Labour Party because I paid to contest. So it's important for women to know that when they give you free forms, they will just add you as part of the numbers, and you will never get there. It speaks
to your resilience, not to just stay on the woman leader thing.
Oh yes,
which a lot of people like to and want to go for something that shows your dexterity in terms
I was
of
actually aiming to get to the national secretary
of the party.
before we had issues in the party. Yeah.
So the quota system conversation.
Yeah.
I know that many people see it as a short-term, medium-term thing.
Yeah, but that's actually what it is. Yeah, it's not a permanent thing. Yeah.
So where do you think it should begin?
Next election cycle.
At the local government level?
Of course, local government, from the lowest level to the highest level. And let me tell you that we need more women to participate at the local government level. I say this because, women are closer to the grassroots. And I am a strong believer that if we get it right at the local level, definitely we're going to get it right, moving to the state and to the national.
So what are the challenges that you think might...
The challenges there, godfatherism is one thing there, because the governor of a state will be the one to nominate the people that will contest from councillor to the local chair. And we have reached out to some of them to say, look, this is also an opportunity for you to look at the twinning system. If you have a man as the local government chair, let the woman be the vice. And, if a woman is the local government chair, let the man be, her vice. So let's look at the twinning system. I want to say here that when we made that, proposal, Rivers State was the first state to, key into that. And that was under Governor Wike then Governor Yaya Bello also picked it up. And then, but to top it now is the governor of Kwara State, who did not just end, with just picking people, but decided to, present an executive bill where there is affirmative action. There's 35% participation for women as a law today in Kwara State. And he also went beyond 35% in appointment of his commissioners to give women 50%.
That's remarkable.
Yes.
So given that the quota is a temporary, initiative, what do you think will be a long-term strategy for and then how do you think quota can be phased out? What will be the duration for the timing that you think it could be phased out?
Okay, so like I said, it's a short-term thing. To get it right, we need to have laws. There has to be legislation. In other countries, there's legislation. And with legislation, it means that a certain percentage of this is not just a special seat now, because you're looking at special seat. That's the quota system you're talking about. That is a short-term thing. But beyond short-term thing, we are looking at legislation, because if the Constitution says there's equality, and if the national gender policy is also talking about participation of women, giving ensuring inclusion, there is no reason we should not have inclusion in governance. So the long term for me is where there is a law. If there is a law, patriarchy will keep behind the law. Culture will do the same, and every other thing that we are looking at. Political parties will begin to canvass for more women to join them, because like it happened in Sierra Leone, few months to their election, their gender law was passed. And then the INEC, the Independent Electoral Commission, they insisted that they were going to follow, the law. And what did it do? Political parties started looking for women. Today, from 18 women in parliament, they have 40. So you see that once there is legislation, every other thing will keep behind legislation.
Well, I introduced the two of you before you came in that these are two leading advocates for advancing gender equity in Nigeria's political landscape. And incidentally, I have two lawyers, one a younger one. But I'm happy to have Cynthia. I understand you are under the weather.
Yeah.
But
good morning.
But it's so sorry to drag you out in this business of trying to see how much we advance gender equity. We were talking about quota. We were talking about the challenges that it could face and some other issues that bedevil, women participation in politics. So let's have your opener.
Well, first, good morning, and I really wanted to be here on time, but I don't know, my body was proving something else. But I'm really glad we're having this conversation, and I always used to say, beyond calling you Grand Convener, PACA is it's one organization that also has been interested in advancing that cause for women. And I think it's important because, like has been said already, the electoral process, if we don't have women engaging or being represented, it means that our electoral process is not democratic, because democracy in itself is about inclusion and is about representation. And I love the part Madam Ebere mentioned around the quota, because the truth is, if we are going to increase women participation, we need gender quotas, not just in the constitution, but also have the legislation that promotes that. And that is because if there's something the law does, the law is an instrument of social engineering. It's just like when you say do not kill. If there's no law to criminalize killing someone, people would still go ahead killing. But why is when before you kill someone, remember that you can go to jail? It's because there's a law. So what quotas do is basically, if you have it in the law, it then makes it mandatory, legally mandatory for both political parties and the Electoral Commission to ensure an increase in women representation. It does not solve the problem, but it's a step to achieving inclusion. So that's one part. The other thing is, with quotas, there are several other things that go hand in hand. And I love the example of Sierra Leone. In Sierra Leone, when the gender bill was passed, the gender equity law was passed, one thing that happened, I remember we had a meeting with the Electoral Commission before the election, and they mentioned that some parties would put a male name and put female, because the thing was, out of your list, you must have, if there are 3 candidates, one must be a woman. But some parties will put a male name and put the F as in female. So the Electoral Commission had to now start scrutinizing the names, because some of them, they have unisex, some names are unisex. Yeah. So even the Electoral Commission had to, because of the law, now go through the names and confirm that truly those that had female were actually female. And then they had to send back the list to some parties to change that. So what am I saying? That you can have a law, but if political parties are not even willing, is also a major challenge. But I think the first step in Nigeria, honestly, is getting the law. Then we can talk about the bigger question on cost and social conceptualization of women as leaders, because all of this go hand in hand. But getting the law, for me, is one of the entry points to increase women inclusion.
Yeah, thank you. So for you, what is the most challenge for women participation in politics, and what do you think needs to happen? Because this is a solution radio for us. It's not just about problematizing. It's about what do you think are those big challenges? What are those big issues that you confront as women, especially as young women? I'll leave the other part to Ebere. She's been on the wrong politically for a while.
Yes.
What are those? I know a lot of young women want to get into this thing. What are those challenges that you think that they confront, and how can they surmount them?
Yeah, I think the first is the perception challenge, and the perception is founded on the patriarchal norms. And for some young women that contested in 2023 and 2019 that we spoke with, one of them said, the thing is, when you want to run for office, so people will say, why do you want to go into politics? Politics is not for women because it's a dirty game. And there's this thing about society thinking, women should be, calm, be in one space. Politics is too dirty and too violent. So there's that perception. And I think one way to start addressing it, honestly, is to start showcasing the women in office and what they are doing. Not just elective, but also appointive office, showcasing women doing great things in other spaces, be it in development space, be it in the health sector, because one of the things I think can address that is how we start telling positive stories of women providing leadership at every part of the society. If people start seeing women as leaders who are doing great job, it also changes how they see women. So for me, that's the one thing, that perception. The second, because I'm a lawyer, I'm always going to talk about the law. Because when the law says something, it is easier to make it done, unlike when it doesn't say it. And I think if there's something we've learned from every other country we've studied, is that we need a law. We need the laws to be passed. And I believe that now we have a 10th assembly. there is an entry point to engage the National Assembly for legislative review. First, we have the gender bill, the one that talks on affirmative action for appointive office, the extra seats bill for the parliament, for that National and State Assembly, and then the one on political party executive for women representation at that level. I do believe that the 10th Assembly has said, yes, both the Speaker and the Senate President, that they have a gender agenda for this Assembly. And we've started the advocacy, but we need to do a lot, begin that lobbying, that meeting, talking to who we need to speak to get the law passed before the next election. So that's the other one. The third is, I think for a lot of us women, we also need to, it's also about starting early. And because politics in Nigeria is not just in Nigeria, presidential systems and first past the post system like ours, where it's winner takes all, the politics are always very contentious, very tough, very difficult to win. And so you need the right resources. Resources now includes money. It also includes political capital or social capital. And so I do believe that as we engage, as we plan for the next elections, for the young women that want to run, please, this is the time to start working. This is the time to start building a name in your constituency, engaging in your constituency, because politics is also about popularity. If you're popular, it also gives you an entry point. But like I said, the first thing, that perception and the law, they are important, so that as women are preparing and doing the groundwork, when they come into the space would the ground will already be watered for them to yield the kind
very
of results.
Excellent and valid point to it. But you have a success story. You can't talk about the not too young to run eventually without a Cynthia Mbamalu. But you're going to hold it there. Madam Ebere, your story is one of those stories Cynthia is talking about. What is the problem? The investment that some of you have made in this piece is not, you are not telling the story to inspire young people in terms of all the travails, the challenges, the triumphs, in your foray into party politics, and then now becoming a very strong voice and advocate. Why is it difficult to tell these stories? Is it something to do with what I call dummy humility?
No, we're actually doing that, but you may just be talking about maybe having a very big program or an event. Because for us in Women in Politics Forum, we started a political academy for young girls, 18 to 35 years. And we are moving from state to state, to get women to participate. And one thing we are achieving with that is usually an opportunity for experience sharing. So we get female politicians, we get also young ladies that are doing well. Some of the girls we trained in Benue State are already having their political experience themselves, because some are working as SAs to politicians now, because we also do mentoring. So we attach them to politicians. There's that opportunity for us to tell our stories, and we are doing that. We also encourage other politicians, to please join. And then just yesterday we had a conversation with Adoro Nyechere. We are looking towards having such a documentary where successful politicians come out, talk to young girls. I tell you just what happened in Ebonyi State. I left Ebonyi State a few days ago before the 1st October. And we trained our girls, and we told them that, look, it's for you to create that opportunity for yourselves. You no longer have to wait for people to do that for you. First opportunity came with the 1st October, and the girls went to the stadium. They had their t-shirts, orange t-shirts. They went to the stadium. They saw where they put a banner for Women in Politics. They got there. The other women said, no, we don't know you. Go away. And they said, no, don't worry. You will know us today. They created a space for themselves. They went there with a banner. And they were seen, and people were looking at them. So this is what we are doing. By the time we, take it across the 36 states, then we would have built a strong, capacity and a strong.
So technology has a role, will have a role to play in that, and yes, partnership with the media beyond them would also have a role. But we'll go on a short break. When we return, our conversation on Electoral Reform Hour with Cynthia and Ebere Ifendu will continue.
Stay tuned to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We'll be back shortly.
Are you ready for change? Join the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, for the Electoral Reform Hour. This program amplifies electoral reform campaigns and provides citizens with opportunity to make meaningful contributions that will strengthen our electoral process.
I think what we should do and what we've been advocating for is to find a way to harmonize all the biometrics we have been doing in the country so that we have one. If you have your NIMSI card, for instance, you should be able to carry all the data, social security, like it's done everywhere. So when you vote, everything about it is there.
My position is that the result, substantive, the election ends at the polling unit. Once the presiding officer, in the presence of polling agents, in the presence of security men, in the presence of all other stakeholders, including some of the people that voted, counted the scores of candidates and parties openly, entered the results into Form EC8A, and snapped it, that is the real result. And it is that goes into IREV.
Let's embark on the path to significant transformation and well-informed decision-making together. As the National Assembly, INEC, and other stakeholders work towards improving our electoral process, you too can be part of the decision-making process by participating in the radio program.
We are on to Comrade Abdullah Mohammed. I'm calling for Bida Local Government Area Council of Niger State. I'm advocating to federal government or the member constituted to look into this electoral reform. That why should a member be in the house to speak the truth? At the end of the day, what we continue receiving or hearing is to suspend that member and to tell him to join any political party of his choice. Who then are we expecting to come and tell us the truth?
This is Brian Orator from Latte IG State. My idea is that INEC should stand firmly as an independent body. Secondly, the local government election should be conducted from the INEC, not from the national level.
Remember, democracy is for the people. Together, we can make a difference. Let your voice be heard in the Electoral Reform Hour, where every opinion matters. PACA, making democracy work for the people.
Thanks for staying tuned. We are back with your favorite program, Electoral Reform Hour, on the network service of Radio Nigeria.
It is still the Electoral Reform Hour, and you can be part of the live program by sharing your comments via the social media platforms on X at packard.ng with the hashtag at Electoral Reform Hour. And you can leave your questions and comments for us on Facebook via at PACA, P-A-A-C-A, CAP, and on WhatsApp number 0816 8083 424. The phone lines will be open soon. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Electoral Reform Hour network service of Radio Nigeria. Before the break, we started an insightful conversation, and now we are set to continue with our distinguished guests, Cynthia Mbamalu and Ebere Ifendu. In our conversation, we haven't looked at what role technology can play, how much we can use technology to do in terms of apps, in terms of advocacy. Is this? I know that Yiaga is big around the use of technology. So, what are those things that we can do more to push this advocacy to ensure that more and more women are brought into the net to participate in politics?
Well, I think the first is using technology to communicate and tell stories better. With a lot that is happening within the social media space, there's an opportunity for several partners and different groups working on the issues around women to start profiling and projecting young women or just women in politics, women who intend to contest for office, telling their stories and pushing it out there. Like these days you have trends, there's several things it's very easy for things to start to trend. But I think we've never really gotten to a point where we're making positive stories of women trend. And I think that's one of the things we need to do. For the women in office already, for those who have won elections, if there's something I am seeing from my observation, when I look at some of the social media engagement of some of the men in politics, it's really active. They are telling, if they go for one meeting somewhere, there's a picture, there's a video. And I think we need, most times, I don't know whether to call it humility. There's a likelihood that for some women in politics, they don't want to make too much noise. They think, let me be humble, let me not make noise. But for politics, you need to be loud. You need to be out there. If people don't see you, they don't know you. So even if you just speaking on a radio station, you take a picture, you blow it up like you were on an international platform, So I think that's one thing, the power of social media. The second, with technology, honestly, is about data data collection and aggregation. One of blessed memory, Simi Sola, her campaign in 2023, I was really inspired by it. If there's one thing she did, that was her first time contesting, and I was really hopeful for the next election until she left us sadly. But one thing she did was she used to send mails almost every day, giving updates on what she's been doing, asking for information on things, because she ran in Ekiti State. So with technology, she could learn more about the state. People could send her update information. They would check this location. This is something you can do in this place. This is who you. So it was not just for her to share information around what she was doing, but she was also using it to get information on how to tailor her campaign to meet the needs of the people. So if there's something I will learn from that, especially for more women that want to contest, is you can use technology to get more information on how to tailor your campaign to meet your target audience in your constituency, but also to share your stories on how to project the work that you're doing. And I think the thought she used was to use it to raise funds, because fundraising is a big thing. And she started early, but in not just using the funds, she was giving an account on what she did with the funds. So even after the elections, even though she did not win, she could say, this is what we did, this is the balance of that, and that accountability is key. So you can use technology also to raise funds, but also to provide information on how you've used the funds for your campaigns.
Excellent. I see that, Ebere, you've been traveling around the country, engaging young people with your Women Academy, or is it Young People's Academy? Well, for me, I've as a then student leader, it always amazes me that for the student union governments, as we call them, then the position for the women are vice president, director welfare, and sometimes social. And it seems to have, been entrenched.
Not anymore.
What's the percentage of women, even historically, when you take away people like NLB in Unijos and all that, you still have had, maybe recently in Futu and somewhere. Yes, but these are a drop in the pan.
I mean, they're beginning to come out to contest, unlike before.
So what I wanted to know is, how much are you, trying to break those stereotypes at that very younger level?
Exactly. I think it's one of the reasons we started the Academy for Young Women. So 80% of our participants are mostly university students. And the essence is to let them know that they can contest for SUG positions, not just go and, just be a welfare officer. We are giving them the courage. We are supporting them also. I think it was last week that I've forgotten the university again, that they sent me a response again that a young girl just for the first time in that university became the student union president. So gradually we are breaking, that barrier for young girls and, to contest elections. And we tell them to start from the SUG level, because that's also what will help them by the time they get into the society, and they are doing that. Yeah, and then for other positions, we encourage a lot of young women, to vie for councillorship positions within their local area. That will help them also to start moving. Maybe in the next electoral cycle, they will start thinking about the state assembly. It's a gradual process, but I know that within the next 10 years, we're going to have a different story.
The councillor in my ward now, in my place, is a woman. You can now join our conversation by calling 0915 0910 482. 0915 910 483. I'll take it again. 0915 910 482. 0915 910 483. This program is for you. It's Electoral Reform Hour on Radio Nigeria. Can we get the calls coming in? If no calls is available, then let's go on in our conversation. So, women exclusion from high-level decision-making process, structures within political parties.
Yeah.
Before you came, we were also talking about the fact that Ebere had not just been a national woman leader; she was also national publicity secretary of a national party, and was even aspiring to be national secretary. How do we break the barriers to ensure that representation of women in executive committees and policy making structures is advanced? Because at the end of the day, if you have men taking the decision in the parties, it's not going to be natural that they would be people who to their side whenever they are wooing. So, what do you think needs to happen?
Well, I think first is the engagement with political parties. So most times we focus on INEC.
Maybe Cynthia, let me allow the person who has been there, who has sat in, as we say, she's been on the table. So what do you think was the challenge? What do you think has been? I know you also play something role in the party space, so you will have been able to see what happens in other political parties. What are the challenges? How can we break this really?
I think first of all, it's for women to show deep interest in party politics. Most women think that to participate in politics is just when you contest an election. But I tell them you start from the party politics, party executive. How many women do we have there? Because when qualified women show interest, it becomes easier for them to participate. When they are not there, just for the parties to show that they are kind of sensitive, they will say there's a position for a woman leader. And then the woman leader position is also another position that the recruitment process is also a problem. Yeah, most times they don't recruit very qualified women. They just want you to sit there, just to tick the box that there's a woman there. And when you get there, you may not, know what to do with that position. If you recall, like you mentioned that I worked closely with IPAC, and I also had issues with IPAC that you intervened at one point. Yeah, this was just because, I tried to train the women within parties with their constitution. And I said, get your party constitution. If you are the financial secretary, look at the constitution. What are the rules there for you as a person? Why don't you, use your constitution to make yourself visible within your party? And I thought I was doing something good, building the capacity of women within the party. And they went back to tell their chairman. They said, oh, she's teaching us to not to be loyal. He was loyal.
Maybe just hold your thought a bit. let me call these numbers again so that we can have our audience participation. Our listener has to be part of this. This program is organized for them. 0915 0910 482. 0915 0910 482. The second number is 0915 0910 483. Again, 0915 0910 483. You can also leave your questions and comments for us on WhatsApp at 0816 8083424 and on X at packer.ng and Facebook at packerpacker. Please go ahead. Let's okay, sorry for interrupting your thoughts.
That's fine. So, as I was saying, it's the recruitment process, the quality of, women that they get nominated or appointed into such positions. I'll tell you that after the training, so for my financial secretary then in Labour Party, this Akishimi, at the National Working Committee meeting, she just raised her hand that she wanted to make a statement, and then they asked her to talk. And she said, look, I need to have the party account statement, I need to do this, I need to do that, because I have to get my records straight. They were lost. But then we had a very good, sensitive chairman, very focused man, Danwanyanwu. Danwanyanwu said, no, she's doing the right thing. And I'm very happy that amongst my ESCOs, I have people who can speak up now, But in other parties, it was a big problem. It was a huge problem because they didn't want, women with that kind of, voice to be part of that. So we need to get highly qualified women to start from the party level to get to that position. And then even when we were women leaders in Nigeria, they knew about us because we were young lawyers that had no grease. I remember at that time that my chairman would be on Channels Television and on AIT. They didn't give me money. I created the space for myself. All I needed was the platform. So we need to have such vibrant women also in party politics today. They are no longer there. They are not seen. They go there, they play politics like the men. So this is what the problem is. But if we have women who are ready to, participate in politics, we have them in some parties now as deputy national chair, secretary. There are some parties that we have, but they are not seen. So we need to have more women.
They are tiptoeing.
It's also because of the climate around.
That climate was there when you were taking advantage. So sometimes we also hoist regime of excuses. Cynthia, your 40 is civil society. I think we are having challenges with the cause, but as soon as it's resolved, we'll get back on that. Your 40 is civil society, and you are big there. So we are talking about collaboration with the EMB, for instance. In implementing gender-sensitive and inclusive policies, what have we not done, and what more can we do?
I think a lot has been done, and one institution that has been reasonably gender-friendly is the Electoral Commission, and the gender policy. The Electoral Commission gender policy has been implemented consistently in every election. So even in their deployment, you will not go to any polling unit now there is an all-male personnel deployed. INEC gender policy provides at least from the 4, you will see 2 are women. Most times, at the least, you see maybe 1 woman out of the 4, but averagely, he's been doing 2 of his 4 are usually women. So a lot of work has been done from the part of the Electoral Commission, but INEC can only do what the law mandates it to do. So INEC cannot reject candidates list from parties if the law does not give it power to do so. But if we have it in the Electoral Act that says if parties' candidate lists do not have this number or percentage of women, then the Electoral Commission can send it back to the parties, then INEC can. So at the moment, I don't want to put a lot of responsibilities on the Electoral Commission if the law doesn't empower it to do so. What INEC is doing gradually is, one, implementing its own gender policy, but also curating voter education messages that is targeted to women. So they have this strategy for voter education that looks at women. But now as civil society, as we collaborate, I believe that there's an opportunity for the electoral reform process to work with INEC. In the last reform process, CSOs partner with INEC to achieve this new electoral act that we have, and we all celebrate. I do believe that it's time we work with Electoral Commission again to start advocating for the amendment of some sections in the electoral act that gives INEC that power to make some statements on the candidate list if it doesn't have women, and for different parties that will come in. And then the issue around violence, but this is not even on INEC's part. It's about the security, because electoral violence also affects how women participate from the party primaries level to the elections day engagement. And we've observed party primaries that have become violent in some state level. And I do believe that the security agencies, their role as election security is not just on elections day, but most times they don't engage the party primaries process. In 2023, during the party primaries of some of the parties, in fact, there was one in this LEA primary school in Use Zone 2, Abuja, that was quite violent. I don't want to call the party's name. And I was like, where are the police? This is the heart of Abuja. And I think if the process is less violent, it would also encourage more women to participate and even support their emergence in the party primary process. The last for me is education. INEC has that role of voter education, and part of voter education is also educating voters that if women are contesting, you should also give them the opportunity, if they provide a manifesto that meets your need, that women also are political leaders that can be part of the system.
Thank you. It's not all the time that you have the kind of capacity that I have in the room. So I'm going to veer off now.
Okay.
And go to the contemporary challenges of democracy generally, especially in Nigeria, and one of them is the challenge of early voting. And there is some conversation in the National Assembly to propose bills that call so that people like Ebere and yourselves can vote during an election. So I want to pick your thoughts on that. I want to also get what you think about diaspora voting. I want to get what you are thinking around holding all the elections in one day. I want to also get what you think about people in correctional centers being allowed to vote. Those are very, contemporary conversations that are going on right now. So who's going to go first?
I can go first. This looks like a physics question. Okay, you have A1A, I'll start with the early voting because I'm big on that early voting because I really need a lot more people to vote who work on elections day. Currently, there's a bill, it has passed the first reading in the Senate, and it's a bill to amend key sections of the Electoral Act to allow the Electoral Commission conduct voting either 2 weeks, actually proposed this in about 2 weeks before the elections, to allow election day workers to vote. This include observers, accredited observers, INEC officials and ad hoc officials. So that includes all the returning officers, or everyone that works on election day from the Electoral Commission side, media practitioners, so the journalists
and the security. Just tell me what you think about it.
I believe that it's important that this bill is passed to enable this large number of people to vote on elections day. It's happening in countries close to us, so it can happen in Nigeria also. And the second is the issue around, you talked about diaspora voting. I do believe that we can amend our laws now to give INEC the opportunity to do diaspora voting. It doesn't need to start instantly, but if the law is amended, INEC can start planning towards diaspora voting, and it can be phased out. We don't need to go across all countries. We can start with select countries where we're clear on the systems.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you talked about people in prison being able to vote.
Yes.
Yes, we experienced that in Kenya, and it was a good thing to get them to vote. But what I don't understand, I do not really know, is if those people had registered earlier and before they were sent to prison. That much I don't know. Or they were able to register while in prison. So
we are dealing with principles here, not the mechanics of it. The principles, in principle, is about expansion of the democratic space.
Well, if that's what we're looking at, I think it's the right thing to do, to give everyone an opportunity.
What about holding elections in one day? All elections in one day?
I don't know how that will work, especially when you're looking at some people suggesting that INEC should also be the commission to handle local government elections. So I don't know how that will work. But for me, majorly, it's not even about having the elections in one day. It's about the transparency of the process. That we should be talking about. Because even if we hold the elections in one day, if it's not transparent, what have we achieved? So the major thing is, are we going to amend the Electoral Act so that once the vote is cast, it is going through the IREV, and the process is so
seamless.
Yeah. So if that is what we are going to achieve, I don't think it's a problem. But don't also forget that our population is huge. So it may be a problem to have the elections in one day. I would think that, like we are having now the national elections and then the state elections. But for me, the most important thing is the transparency of the process.
Okay, we're on the home stretch. Any final thoughts that you...
We need to pass laws to expand democratic participation, which is why I'm big on voters in prison voting, diaspora voting, early voting, women political participation. And I don't mind elections in one day, provided it does not include local government elections. But like you said, the principle is integrity and transparency of the process.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, for me, I think what we need most is an inclusive democracy. Where women, youth, persons living with disabilities will be able to participate. So I think the 10th Assembly should do the right thing by ensuring that gender bills are passed and to ensure that the elections are transparent with all the laws that we need to put in place. And also for us to be able to ensure that anyone found, going against the laws must be punished. Because if we don't do that, everyone will think it's the right thing to do and it will change whatever hard work we put in place.
Well, thank you, the 10th Assembly. I hope we don't continue the cycle of always sending new bills and then trying to solve a problem that is already solved. Well, very special thanks to our guests, Cynthia Mbamalu, Director of Programs, Yiaga Africa, and Ebere Ifendu, President of Women in Politics Forum, WIPF, for joining us on the program. To our dear listener, thank you for joining us on this edition of the Electoral Reform Hour, brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Our engineers today are on duty are Adeyemi, Solomon, and Christy and Kelly. The ICT personnel are Mohammed Sani. Studio manager is ever dependable Finehas Udoeyo, and producers Andohemba Ohain and Joy Ubi. The supervisor is Husseina Akila MNI. Facilitating team Jeremiah Mbume and Grace Abu. We apologize for the questions, for the calls that couldn't come through, and we couldn't take any questions today. My name is Ezen Wawagu, your anchor, saying have a nice day and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.